Hello, everyone. So for today's Right Into the Day, we are going to be answering two questions. The first of which is, after everything that we've learned about immigration, big business, corruption, and the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, do you think that the government should be involved in business? Why or why not? And some people might say, absolutely, yeah, we need the government. But other people might say, no, we don't really need the government because the government is just becoming all powerful. They're becoming too powerful. And both opinions are completely fair. And as a follow-up, if you think that the government should be involved, how much involvement should they have? And if you don't think that the government should be involved, then how will the United States take care of the average American worker? And even if you don't think that the government should be involved, you need to remember that one of the government's responsibilities is to protect the people. So it's okay if you think the government shouldn't be involved in business, but then how are the people going to be protected? And I want you to answer both of these questions using complete sentences. Today, our goals are to examine federal and state government's response to labor unions and reform. This is the last lesson in this unit, which this is the second unit, if you can believe it, of the school year. It was definitely one of the longer ones. Some vocabulary that we need to know. Some of this we might already know, but I just wanted to clarify it for people who might need a little bit of review. So progressives are the people who want to make change during the progressive era. They're also called progressive or reformers, stuff like that. Corruption is when actions, usually in government, are dishonest or fraudulent. And fraudulent is just a fancy way of saying fake. So whenever an action is not fair, not honest, or it's fake and doesn't help the people, it's considered corrupt. You'll need to know primary election, which a primary election is when the people vote for who they want to be in the government. This isn't just for the president, this is also for local representatives, like people in the House of Representatives. It's also for senators, people in local government. Whenever you see on the road those signs saying, vote for John Smith because they're going to help the roads, or vote for Jane Doe because she's going to end the government corruption in the state. Those are all examples of things that you might see around the time of a primary election, because the people are going to be the ones making the decision. So the candidates want to help the people have the people vote for them. Legislation is a fancy way of saying law. So when you hear that legislation was passed, it means that a law has been passed. Legislation, law, and bill are used interchangeably. And laissez-faire, it's a term that we've definitely heard before. It's the policy where government is hands-off or not involved with business. All of these vocab terms will be spread throughout this lesson today, so it's definitely important to review them just in case you don't know them. So first we're going to talk about how the government was fixed, quote unquote, during the progressive era. So at the state level, this is just an example of Wisconsin. It's called the Wisconsin Idea. And this guy, who was the governor of Wisconsin, his name was Robert La Follette. He's also known as Battling Bob, which I think is a pretty cool nickname. He introduced progressive reforms at the state level. Like, for example, he reduced railroad rates. And we know that this angered a lot of people because they couldn't travel, they couldn't send their goods from place to place. And ultimately, it actually led to an increase in railroad business. More people were willing to buy from the railroad, to go from place to place, to use it, because they could actually afford it. He also held a primary election, which is one of the terms I just talked about, where he let the Wisconsin citizens vote on who would be their party's candidate. So before this, the people who were in charge of the party leaders would choose the candidate. So often the person who was involved in the government was bribed. They were offered money, or they offered money to be part of the government. And the party leaders are going to choose their friends. So this led to a lot of corruption, a lot of unfairness, a lot of problems, dishonesty. So Robert La Follette saw that and he was like, we are a democracy, and a democracy means that we are of, by, and for the people. So the people should be involved in the government. And that's what he does. He helps the people get involved in the government by holding primary elections where the people vote on who's going to be in the government. At the federal level, we have the federal government also agreed with Wisconsin. Wisconsin really is the state that kind of starts all of this up. And if people were going to be part of a democracy, they should be allowed to vote on who's representing them. So just like what was happening in Wisconsin, the same thing was happening in the United States Senate and in the House of Representatives, where party leaders were selecting who was going to be in office. And this led to the passage of the 17th Amendment, which says that United States senators are elected by the people of the United States. So instead of having your friends give you your job, instead, the people are the ones who need to vote for you. And this is so important because this gets rid of corruption in the government. Now, some may argue that there is still some corruption in the government. I think that, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. However, because of these amendments, the people are the ones who are responsible. They're the ones who are voting for the people in government. So, the progressive reforms, as far as decreasing corruption, are first off the 17th Amendment, like I just said. Voters can select their party's candidates, reduces the possibility of bribery and fraud. Voters can also propose bills or laws to the legislator. So if and this is still true to this day, say I felt that there should be a law regarding education, and I'm just going to come up with a ridiculous law. So say I came up with this law that I think that the education of students would be beneficial if everybody wore flip-flops. So I can go to my representative and say, listen, we should present this as a law that all people going to school need to wear flip-flops. Now, he's going to think that that idea is ridiculous, and he's probably going to just smile and nod, and then when I go away, throw out whatever I said. But if it was a legitimate law that could help people, then our representative could bring it to government and could potentially pass it as a law. Like I said, they're not going to pass ridiculous laws like the one that I just made up, but they will pass laws that are actually going to help the American people, because we, the people, are the ones in charge of our government. That's the basis of our democracy. So, voters also can vote on bills or laws directly. This gives the people the power. So, occasionally when you vote, and I know you haven't seen this yet, but sometimes when you go to vote, or your parents go to vote, you can see on the ballot, it will say something about how would you feel about a law where this was to change, or do you think that this law should be passed? A couple years ago, there was a law regarding teachers, and you might have seen a lot of teachers that said vote no. A lot of teachers with bumper stickers that said vote no on them. And a while ago, there was a question of whether we should have another constitutional convention, meaning that we should rewrite our Constitution of the United States. And again, you saw a lot of bumper stickers and things saying vote no to the Constitutional Convention. Voters can vote on bills directly, so this means that the people are the ones who are making the decisions. Voters can also remove corrupt elected officials from office by voting for someone new. We can go help impeach somebody. We can't personally impeach somebody. And remember, to impeach just means that you're putting them on trial. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily removing them from office. So we can impeach someone. We can tell people, listen, like, these guys, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So at the next election, we are voting them out and we are voting for somebody new. And it's amazing what the power of the people have. For the next segment, I'm actually going to start a new video because I don't have enough time on this one. So we're going to talk about fixing business and fixing working conditions in the next video. So just make sure that you click on part 2 of government regulations and reforms.